The Bear Season 3 dropped its first official trailer. We got some information on Steven Spielberg's next movie, and Knives Out 3 has released its official title. Let's get into this week's movie news.
Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And today we're going to do another episode of movie news where we go through all of the movie news so you don't have to. There are a ton of new releases out this weekend, as well as a shitload of new stories and trailers. But let's get into the opening weekend box office. So this is Memorial Day weekend. Technically, it's a 4-day weekend, but we did the numbers for the 3-day weekend, so it's not inflated by that Monday. Now, at the top of the box office was Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, with kind of an underperforming $28 million for the 3-day weekend.
I thought it was projected for about $40 million for the opening weekend. That's pretty low.
Yeah, so pretty low numbers. It will hit about $35 million for the 4-day Memorial Day weekend, so it is going under the projections of the film's studio.
Yeah, $168 million budget. That is going to need to make up some extra space, but that's similar to what The Fall Guy performed at with a budget of about, what, $130 million with a big budget as well. But $28 million is not what they were hoping for at Warner Brothers for the prequel to Fury Road. But we're going to do an episode on it tomorrow, so stay tuned for that.
Next up at number 2, we had Garfield with $24 million opening weekend. Obviously a huge hit with families. I expect this movie to do really well overseas and have long legs because there's not much competition other than If, which came out in 3rd place in its second weekend with $60 million. The John Krasinski movie has legs and is doing very well.
And then we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes pulled in another $13 million at the domestic box office. And speaking of the devil, The Fall Guy is in 5th place with $5.5 million added to its box office. So kind of a low performing, I guess, 4-day Memorial Day weekend. But I mean, when you combine it all, it's sort of averaged out pretty well.
Yeah,
but still not the massive weekends we're used to for these 3-day, 4-day weekends.
And the record setter for Memorial Day weekend right now is still Solo, Star Wars story with over $100 million opening weekend on Memorial Day 8 years ago.
Which was all the money it made. Just kidding. Let's move into some news, everybody. First off, Season 3 of The Bear dropped an awesome teaser trailer. We didn't get too much information of the characters. It was sort of a cool compilation of stressful events from the show, which is probably every episode, of course, as we know, because it's a very tension-inducing series, and I can't wait for this show. It looks incredible, and obviously we're now in the formation of the restaurant, The Bear, and we ended last season with how it just launched, but now it looks like we're going to be full swing into the restaurant, and of course, everything is going wrong, it looks like, and lots of stress is happening.
That happens when you open a restaurant, and I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait now that The Bear is open. And that trial run started out pretty well, but then obviously ended in disaster. But I can't wait to revisit these characters and this world they created. And right now, it's probably the hottest show on TV at the moment.
Coming out June 27th on Hulu.
All right, next up, we got some Steven Spielberg news. His next film has officially been announced with a release date of May 15th, 2026. We don't know anything about this film, but it could be an untitled UFO film written by David Koepp, who wrote Jurassic Park and War of the Worlds. All we know at the moment is it's going to be a big event film, which he has kind of strayed away from recently, doing a lot of his smaller films like Bridge of Spies and The Post. And then obviously he had an event film with the musical he did a couple years ago, but it's happy to have him back in sci-fi, I hope, because he is the king of sci-fi, probably.
He probably is the king of sci-fi. He's like quite a few science fiction films in that genre. Quite a few. Speaking of sort of supernatural sci-fi, we have a full-length trailer now of Beetlejuice, which is the title of the second film of this now franchise. And I watched it, and also I thought the same thing that you thought the other day when we talked about it, Anthony, where we said, like, did we need this movie? And I get it. It's cool to go back and revisit it. And Tim Burton, as most creative, is always exciting to watch. And it looks like a lot of cool practical filmmaking. A lot of the same jokes from the original are sort of being recycled here in fun ways. And, you know, everyone's a little older except for Jenna Ortega, who's now sort of, I'm assuming, going to be the lead of the franchise or the movie going forward as the daughter of Winona Ryder's character. And it looks like a pretty good time. It looks really creative. I like how we're sort of getting more of the dead involved. And we got lots of characters like Danny DeVito's playing a person of the dead, Monica Bellucci, Willem Dafoe. So I think exploring more characters more intensely outside of just Beetlejuice for this other plane, this other side of the world of the dead and the living, it should be a pretty entertaining time, it looks like.
Yeah, and it looks like they're doing something different where they actually have a full out villain with Monica Bellucci's character looks to be like the villain of the movie, whereas Beetlejuice technically was the villain and the title character and like the fun protagonist in a way. So it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe everybody's going to have to try to stop Monica Bellucci's character. Danny DeVito has a cameo. I don't know if you saw him for a split second getting electrified. Uh,
Yeah, I just said Danny DeVito
oh, did you?
14 seconds ago, guy. This guy. I literally said Danny DeVito, the icon of Jersey Mike subs, is guy's a cameo in Beetlejuice.
Ultimately, I'm not really sure about it, but we'll see when it comes out. Next up, we have some Last of Us news. We predicted this when we talked about season 1 of the show, saying that it would make sense and it's only right that Jeffrey Wright reprise his role for the live action adaptation for his voice acting role in the second game. And he's confirmed he has been cast in the live action adaptation of season 2, which means they are going heavy into the second game in this season.
Yeah, so it looks like I believe what I've heard is season 2 and 3 will be part 2 of the storyline of the games. And so Jeffrey Wright, I won't spoil the character really who he is or anything, but he's basically a leader of one of the main groups in the area that Ellie discovers on her travels. But I won't go too much into detail because it's just too juicy, and it's really cool to see him reprise his role because we've seen voice actors from the game be characters in the show, whether they've reprised their roles or played somebody else, which is really cool. Obviously, the voice actor behind Tommy, he played one of the sort of tactical officers in the small town that they stumble upon in episode 2 or 3. So he didn't play himself that he played in the game, but he played a character. So it's cool to see the voice actors. Same thing with Ashley, voice acts. Ellie got a role as Ellie's mother in the Last of Us TV show. So I think it's really cool to keep working with a lot of the same people.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and it is a great role for anyone who hasn't played the game. So I can't wait to see him.
So we got some Pirates of the Caribbean news from Disney, 2 bits of news that we kind of already knew a bit of, but now a little more details, which the comment section and the reactions on Twitter were just too gold because no one wants these movies. Everyone's like, not watching without Depp, not watching without Johnny. So we now have officially 2 Pirates of the Caribbean movies are in the works, confirms Jerry Bruckheimer, the producer of the original franchise. A reboot is being written with Jeff Nathanson, the writer behind The Lion King. So I don't know if it's a complete reboot in terms of we're going to get Jack Sparrow played by somebody else. I hope that's not what they're going to try to do. I hope to God, because no one wants to see that. No one wants to see a new Jack Sparrow when Johnny made that character so famous and beloved. And this is really the reason why the Pirates movies were so successful and entertaining. And then we're going to get a spinoff starring Margot Robbie. Now, I'm not sure if the Io Debris version franchise will be the Margot Robbie one or if she'll be part of the reboot. I'm assuming she'll be the reboot version because they're both getting their own movie, right?
Yeah, I believe that the Jeff Nathanson one is the rumored to be the Io Debris one because I'm guessing if they're doing a reboot, they're not going to do any of the same characters. I think they're just going to do, it's going to be a reboot of the Pirates franchise.
So it seems like, yeah.
And so I don't.
So it looks like, yeah.
I don't expect them to have. I don't expect them to do a Jack Sparrow recreation because
it's going to be Jess Sparrow. Jess Sparrow.
If they do that, it will piss everybody off. So I doubt that Jack Sparrow will be a character. I'm guessing they're just going to take it a reset and just use the ride as the starting off point again because I think that's the only way to do it. I don't think there's going to be a Will Turner. I don't think there's going to be an Elizabeth. I don't think we're going to get any of those same characters. I'm guessing they'll want to. They did already do a lot of the villains in pirate lore, like Blackbeard, like Davy Jones. So they could probably do those again eventually, but they probably want to go with a pirate villain from stories told in the past that has been done before, that is well known. I'm not sure who's left in terms of the big names that audiences will know. So they'll maybe create a villain, but I doubt it's going to be a straight up reboot of what's already been done before.
The new villain will be Crab Face.
Crab
Crab
face.
Face. He's got pincers up here. All right, moving
Very
on to some
scary.
more news.
All right,
What
we
we
got
got
some great,
next?
very exciting news for fans of the Knives Out franchise. Rian Johnson has been wasting no time and already has the third film in the franchise underway with pre-production, and they officially released the name of this film, which will be called Wake Up Dead Man. This film is set to release on Netflix in 2025. No release date yet, but the title reveal looks very exciting. It looks to be as though, since they use a casket for the logo, somebody's dead and the murder mystery is involving the funeral guests. That's my guess.
Yeah, maybe someone has risen from the dead,
Oh,
from the grave. Super exciting. I really enjoyed the first Knives Out a lot. It's one of my favorite noirs or murder mysteries in a while. I enjoyed Glass Onion. I think it was a bit of a step down, but I really respect Rian Johnson, telling a lot of great original stories and sort of revitalizing the murder mystery along with Kenneth Branagh with his franchise of murder mysteries. So I think it's really exciting. And obviously, you can't waste any time. He signed that Netflix deal. He's got to get these movies out. When they give you $100 million, you got to get those movies out, bro. You ain't got no time to waste. You got to get writing, Ryan. Let's move on to some Deadpool and Wolverine news. So the film earned $9 million already in pre-sales for its first day of pre-orders for tickets, which is pretty wild. Already made $9 million. And also, Ryan Reynolds has confirmed that Rob McElhenney will make a cameo in Deadpool 3. And I hope to God he's reprising his role as Mac from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because they're best buds, and it'd be really cool to see him. I think be Mac in the movie, like old school Mac from like seasons 1 through 10. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
they have to do Mac, and it would only work if it's just for a little bit, because it wouldn't. It would be too much if they had a significant amount of screen time. But if it was Mac from Sunny, that would be absolutely insane. It would. Everybody would love that, and it's now projected to earn over 100 million in its opening weekend. Although it is still kind of projecting a little lower than Deadpool 1, which was obviously a huge standout success with $1 billion, but it's having a stronger opening weekend for sure. 9 million in ticket sales is a record for this weekend, from Memorial Day weekend pre-sales. So very good numbers, very exciting stuff. People are obviously very interested in seeing this film. And something that I'm extremely interested in seeing is Cary Joji Fukunaga's next film, who we both think is one of the greatest directors working today. He is making an upcoming crime thriller, which is set in a metropolitan city where the power goes out and then chaos ensues. And both Tom Hardy and Mahershala Ali have signed on to the project so far. So this is one of my most exciting projects that I can't wait to see right now.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. It's called, I think, Blackout 77. It's based on true events in New York City when the power went out and just chaos went crazy. So
I
it's
can't
going to
wait.
be a period piece. So it sounds excellent. Let's move on to some more Disney news. 14% of Pixar's employees are getting laid off as part of the biggest restructuring in the studio's history. And part of me can't help but imagine that maybe the involvement of AI in filmmaking right now has something to do with this, as well as the big box office losses that Disney's been experiencing the last several years with their live action and animated features. They're trying to save some money because it's been a bit of an unsuccessful few years. They've had some hits, but especially when you factor in the Disney Plus series, when they've been spending a lot of money on a lot of TV shows with not much of a return on investment or ROI like you get with the box office. You can't help but imagine, but that all these are contributing to 14% of Pixar's employees losing their jobs, which is very unfortunate.
And then last year, Disney had cuts of, I think they cut 2,000 employees last year at Disney alone.
Mm-hmm.
So huge cuts. And then Francis Ford Coppola actually had an interview at Cannes the other day, and it was pretty revealing, where he said that he knows, and obviously someone like him will know better than anyone, better than any journalist or someone online writing shit, that, and he said all of the studios are in debt, and massive amounts of debt. And he said
Except for Blumhouse.
except for Blumhouse.
In 87 North, they're the only ones that really make successful movies right now.
Yeah, and he did say that the problem with Hollywood right now is that it's not that they're making movies for greed because they want to make more money. They're making movies to help with their debt more than anything to just try to pay off their debt. So that's what's
Yeah.
fueling the consumerist approach to film production in Hollywood, he said.
It's out of desperation. Then also they just can't stop. Every budget just gets bigger and bigger. So they're putting more and more money into movies that they think will make $1 billion every time. And it's just not the case. So they're just spending so much money trying to make money back to try to get rid of that debt. This is why they're bundling together on their streaming platforms. Like we talked about recently, we have official confirmation of the name for Comcast, who will launch Stream Saver, a streaming bundle for Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV Plus. It'll be $15 per month. That is a terrible name. I'm sorry. Stream Saver. That sounds like
it sounds like a knockoff email that you'd get.
No, it sounds like something to fix like a hose, like Stream Saver. We're gonna fix the power pressure of your hose. Or it's Stream Saver. Who came up with that name? It's terrible.
That's awful. It sounds like connected. It sounds like a fake email of a scammer you'd get. Stream Saver.
Sounds terrible. Absolutely terrible. But again, this is all connected. The bundling up of all these streamers and their studios and their streaming platforms, just desperately making as many movies as possible to try to get paid, to try to make money. But I think they just went too hard into streaming with TV series and movies that don't make money. So we've talked about that dozens and dozens of times. But there's some other cool news that we can get into. Because speaking of
streaming, Dune Part 2 is finally out on Max. So go watch that at home on a huge screen. And if you can afford the higher subscription rate just for the 4K UHD quality and better sound, I'd recommend doing that.
Hell yes. Lisa Al Game. Let's move on to the Witcher news. Here we go, everybody. We finally got our first look at Liam Hemsworth as Geralt. I feel bad for Liam. I think he's just being a good sport, and it's awesome. It's a great opportunity to be this character, I think, in a show, but a lot of people just aren't going to tune into season 4 of the series because they're just so disappointed in the last 2 seasons in the trajectory of the character and what they did with Henry Cavill and how he left his biggest passion project because he just couldn't get any creative freedom or control over the story, and they just went in crazy directions with his character. We got our first look at Liam as Geralt, and he looks great as the role and the character. But I feel bad because all the comments are basically like, knock off Henry Cavill. I'm not watching this show. That's not Henry Cavill. So it's unfortunate. He looks great in the role, but I think this show is just not going to get really any views.
I'm sure that he'll do a very good job too. And I did on the image, the comment sections are pretty brutal. They are pretty funny though, but I think that, it's a character that will be played by many people as time goes on. So it's just the way it is. I mean, there are a bunch of video games and a lot of novels. So obviously there will be different iterations of the character. So this is just the second one. Cavill had 3 seasons. That's a lot of screen time. That's a lot of episodes. So,
well, I mean, they cut his screen time quite a bit. So I wouldn't say that. True. I wouldn't say he had a lot of screen time by the end of that show.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure that Liam Hemsworth will do a very good job.
Yeah. He's a great actor.
All right, we got a Venom Last Dance rumor. So apparently, a 10-year-old Peter Parker will appear in Venom: The Last Dance.
We'll see. Just a rumor. We got our first look at the Smashing Machine in an almost unrecognizable Dwayne Johnson as former MMA fighter Mark Kerr. This is written and directed by Benny Safdie. It'll be his first, I believe, solo directorial debut because he usually directs with his brother. Now, this looks excellent, and I really respect so much what makeup artists and prosthetic artists and special effects makeup artists do, because to give Dwayne Johnson hair again, first of all, looks so odd, but he looks pretty much unrecognizable, and I'm very excited about this movie. It looks sick.
Yeah, he's got a fake nose, and it really changes your face, and if you look to the right of the frame, it is Emily Blunt there ringside, so she'll be co-starring as his partner. All right, next up, they finally dropped the trailer for Reagan, the Ronald Reagan biopic with Dennis Quaid playing the former president. And I gotta say, this is probably the worst looking trailer I've seen all year. It looks like a film class of like 8th graders made it and wrote it. It looks terrible. Oh my God. Jon Voight had, I don't know what studios, it's like independently made. And the makeup looks terrible. The hair looks terrible. The story looks ridiculous. And Jon Voight, he's very old, and they just put a ton of makeup on him and the worst fake beard I've ever seen in my life. John Voight's wearing in this trailer, and it looks absolutely dreadful. The dialogue's terrible. It's the cringiest trailer I've ever seen, honestly.
Yeah, this is definitely an independent studio because a major Hollywood studio wouldn't make a probably, I'm guessing, a pro Republican president film. I'm assuming it's going to be showing him in a positive light. I'm assuming.
The trailer definitely shows him in a positive light. Yeah,
Yeah, so like obviously a Hollywood studio wouldn't do that. I didn't even watch the trailer.
it's
Um,
awful. I think it's the worst trailer of the year, honestly. It's that bad. You should watch it just to see how bad it is. It's
I gotta
ridiculous.
see John Voight's beard. Oh my god, that's a bad fake beard. That is a bad fake beard. Holy crap, he looks creepy. Damn.
It looks like
All
James
right.
Lipton from the actor studio.
But Quaid does look like Ronald Reagan.
He does look like him. Yeah, yeah.
We have a new Mel Gibson and Mark Wahlberg movie in the works, which will release on October 18th in theaters. The film is called Flight Risk, and it follows a pilot who is transporting a dangerous criminal for trial.
Aren't they both actual flight risks? Just kidding.
No, Mark's pretty good these days.
I'm just kidding. All right, next up, we talked about Hugh Jackman's upcoming Robin Hood film, The Death of Robin Hood. It has been picked up by A24 for the U.S. distribution rights. So this obviously, like we said last two movie news ago, this film follows Robin Hood grappling with his past after a life of crime and murder, whilst in the hands of a mysterious woman after being badly injured, played by Jodie Comer. So A24 will be distributing this film.
We have some Cannes news. The Apprentice, which features Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump in younger years, received glowing reviews for Sebastian's performance and a generally positive but mixed response. Also, the body horror, The Substance, is the festival's big hit, starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, was just sold for distribution. Sean Baker's Honor premieres to rave reactions at Cannes and looks like the frontrunner of the festival to win Palme d'Or, as well as Megalopolis gets positive yet divided reactions from critics, which we've talked about 2 weeks in a row now. And also George Lucas today is getting presented with an honorary Palme d'Or at Cannes Festival.
Yeah, lots going on. There's still several movies to release. There's an Indian film that is getting a lot of press that comes out, and it plays, I believe, tomorrow night. So keep an eye out for that one. And then there's a few others, but it looks like Sean Baker's film is like the crowd favorite. You can actually look online and see the critics' scores at the festival. They rate them out of 4 stars, and then there's a table that shows the overall average. And right now, Honora is the far and away front runner with a 3.3 rating, and the next highest rated film was The Substance with a 2.7. So Honora looks to be the front runner for winning the Palme d'Or for sure.
Yeah, it's quite a difference.
All right, next up, we talked about how Sam Mendes is heavy in production on making 4 Beatles films, which will be interconnected and tell the story of each Beatle independently. Paul Mescal was just cast as one of the Beatles. Now, I gotta say, he's definitely playing John Lennon because he has similar features.
Yeah, I wonder what his beard looks like. I don't think I've ever seen Paul Mescal with a beard. I believe he has pretty good facial hair, so to pull off a beard. I could also, yeah, he wouldn't be Ringo.
He's gonna be one of the big ones.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He wouldn't be Ringo. I don't think he fits Paul quite well, but I would say, yeah, probably John. That's a good pick.
I think he could do either Paul or John, but I think that he looks closest to John. I would say
his nose,
his nose.
Yeah, I would say he'd be John too.
He's kind of a dead ringer almost. If you gave him the hair, I think that he's a good choice, obviously. And I didn't know he could sing, so can't wait.
He's an actor. A lot of them can, man, especially when they come from theater. Let's talk about Crime 101. Mark Ruffalo and Chris Hemsworth are in talks to star in this film. It's a heist thriller that follows high-level jewel thieves and thefts taking place up and down the Pacific Coast, where a detective zeroes in on a thief looking for a final score.
Dun, dun, dun. Sounds fun. All right, we have some tragic news. Morgan Spurlock passed away at the young age of 53. He is obviously the world-famous documentarian, most famous for making Super Size Me, the documentary about eating McDonald's for every meal for 30 days straight to see what effect it would have on the human body and mind. And he really did change the way people thought about fast food and especially American, the American food machine. So that documentary had a major impact culturally. And he will be missed, obviously. Very, very famous, especially in like 2002 when that came out. All right, we have another trailer. The final trailer for Beverly Hills Cop 4 was released. It looks like pretty fun, and looks like it's really made for fans. Eddie Murphy's obviously having a lot of fun, and the rest of the cast is there. This film is coming out on Netflix July 3rd, so very soon.
Moving on to The Hunt. Iowa Debris has been cast in Luca Guadagnino's The Hunt alongside Andrew Garfield and Julia Roberts. The film follows college professor who finds herself at a crossroads when a pupil levels an accusation against one of her colleagues.
Sounds like Doubt.
So it sounds like Garfield and Roberts will be the professors and Iowa will be the student because she's the youngest of the three.
Mm-hmm. That's what my guess is, and it sounds like it could be like a very similar to Doubt. That's immediately what I thought of when I read the synopsis.
But also very similar to The Hunt, the Mads Mikkelsen film.
Yeah. Oh yeah, great film. That's weird to use the same name.
Maybe it's sort of a maybe it's a different version of The Hunt. That's my guess.
Oh, is this the American adaptation of it, you think?
It looks like it, but obviously with older pupils.
Oh, you might be right. It could be because
it's got to be, yeah. Because
I'm not sure American audiences would be comfortable with it being in a preschool.
No way.
So actually, I think you might be right, and this could be the American adaptation, but we're setting it in a college instead.
Yeah, but it looks like they're following not the male as the main character anymore.
Yeah.
So Julia Roberts.
Well, no,
like she's the main character.
Yeah. I would say Garfield might be. Yeah, I say so. Garfield must be playing Maz's part.
No, that's what I mean because Maz is the main character in that movie.
Oh, I see.
Julia will be the main character in this movie.
Gotcha. 100%.
All right, two last bits of news.
We got one more trailer of The Sacrifice, starring Eric Bana and Sadie Sink, as well as a couple of great actors in the ensemble. And it follows Sadie Sink, who returns home, but joins a mysterious cult while wrestling and grappling with her father, who wants her out of it. It looks like a really interesting trailer.
And final bit of news from Disney Plus and Marvel, a Vision series will be released in 2026 with Paul Bettany set to return. Terry Matalas, the showrunner of Star Trek Picard, will showrun this film. And I guess they aren't slowing down no matter how many times Bob Iger says they're going to do less quantity, more quality, because who asked for a Vision show? I know we've all been wondering where he was, but that was like 2 years ago. But that was like 8 years ago. Vision
People don't forget.
That was so long. That was like 2020, right?
Yeah, it was during lockdown. Yeah.
When
WandaVision.
WandaVision came out. Was it 2021?
It was 2020.
2021. And that's all we have for movie news. Thank you to everyone who's been donating to our film One Click. We're over $10,000, and we have 1 week left for donations to be accepted. So please donate what you can to help us make this film come to life. Be sure to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews, and see you next time. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.